Okay, folks, I hope everybody had a great weekend. I'm going to go over the notes very quickly on a market in equilibrium to help you with the assignments this week. So I have also posted under materials under week 4, I posted just a page that shows the definition of market in equilibrium and also all the labels that I'm going to go over today on this video. So in a market in equilibrium, this is essentially where we want every market to be, and a point of intersection where the quantity supplied equals the quantity demanded. Instead of just having the supply curve or the demand curve individually on one plane, you're going to see them both on the same plane. In a market economy, supply and demand is their interaction is what dictates price in our economy. It's not set by the government because we're not a command economy. It's not set by consumers, otherwise it'd be really low because then we'd want to buy more at that price. And it's not set by suppliers, otherwise price would be super high so that they can make a higher profit. In a market in equilibrium, let's say for example that this is the market for shoes. You have both the supply curve and the demand curve interacting with each other. In every market, we said that there were buyers on the demand side and sellers on the supply side that interact with each other to exchange goods and services. The way that price is determined in a market economy is based on this point of intersection. This point of intersection we can label with a small e, and this is called the equilibrium point. Equilibrium point. This is where the quantity that we supply equals the quantity that we demand, okay? At this point of intersection, everyone who demanded a pair of shoes at that price was supplied a pair of shoes at that price. Remind me to go over surpluses and shortages a little bit later when the quantity supplied might be greater than the quantity demanded or vice versa, and it causes for there to be a shortage or a surplus in our market. In this point of intersection, this point of perfection, everyone is basically happy. All of the needs are met by both the supplier and by both the consumer. So you have on this plane, it's very important to know all of the labels that you should be labeling. First, I need to backtrack and label my axes. So on the y-axis, you have price. You can label that with a big P. And then you have quantity on the x. Quantity is not quantity supplied or quantity demanded because you have both of them interacting on the same plane, so it's just a general quantity. And you can also label that by just a big Q, okay? All right, so, and then you have the supply and the demand curve. This is where you are starting every single one of the questions on the assignment is with a point with a market in equilibrium. If you forget which is the upward sloping or downward sloping line, just remember Scooby-Doo or San Diego or Salty Dogs. I can't remember any other of the examples that my students in the past have mentioned, but those should suffice. So in any case, remember upward sloping is the supply curve, downward sloping is the demand curve. At this point of intersection, this is the point of perfection. If you track with the dotted line to the y-axis, and you should always, then this is the price equilibrium. Price equilibrium is illustrated by a large P and a little e. This is price equilibrium. A little bit crowded there, but that's fine. And then you track from this equilibrium point to the x-axis, the quantity equilibrium. And it's designated by a big Q and a little e. Quantity equilibrium. Okay. Equilibrium. All right. So in any case, that is how you label a market in equilibrium. There is an economist named Adam Smith who essentially talks about this idea of invisible hands. He says that if price was too high, if the price that's prevailing in the market is too high, this is where you have, and I'm just going to briefly go over a shortage and a surplus, this is where you have the quantity supplied is greater than the quantity that's being demanded. So that price is too high for consumers. There's not a lot of people demanding that good at that price, but they're supplying more at that price because suppliers, again, want to put more onto the shelf when the price is higher so that they can make a higher profit. This creates a surplus. A surplus is when there's just a lot of items on the shelf, inventory on the shelf that wasn't being bought. And then also if price was too low the price that's prevailing in the market, this is where you have the quantity that's being demanded is greater than the quantity that's being supplied at that price. And so here's where you have then a shortage, because the price is so low that you have a lot of people wanting to buy that or demand that item at that price, but you don't have a lot of suppliers supplying it at that price, because again, they don't supply as much when the price is low. And so then you are created, or the problem that's being created is then a shortage. So Adam Smith says that if there's ever a time that price is too high or price is too low, that these invisible hands would push price down if it was too high to get back to this point of equilibrium, or that would push this low price up so that again it can meet that point of equilibrium, and that we can be in a market in perfection. So in perfection, it's a perfect place that you want our market to be in. And so essentially then, our economy will always autocorrect itself back to this point. Okay, I have a couple of examples that I want to go over with you that will help to give you a little bit of a review for what I expect for you guys to complete on the assignment on Google Classroom. I suggested that it's going to be really difficult to label absolutely everything that I'm asking you to label on the doc itself. So I ask that you guys draw these assignments, the assignment out on your own paper, write it out on your own paper, and that way you can take a picture of it and then upload that picture as your assignment. I asked you guys to only work on the even numbered questions on the assignment, because I'm going to go over the odd numbered questions during our Google Meets, and I posted all that information onto Google Classroom. So your questions are kind of like this. Exactly like this. It's going to present you with a scenario that asks you what happens to the equilibrium price and what happens to quantity in a market in whatever market based on whatever scenario. In this case, for all of these questions, I ask for you guys to have 2 different colors of pen, or use a pen and a pencil, or color pencils or markers, but 2 different colors to designate the change of each of these. And that you should also have with you, alongside with you, the cheat sheets that we went over of the factors that affect demand and also the factors that affect supply, so that when you look at the scenario, you can determine what is changing. And if it is something from #step through giant cactus, then supply is being affected. If it is one from Piper, well, then demand is being affected. So these cheat sheets will come in handy in doing so. I think I posted a key for the demand one on Google Classroom, and then you should have done the supply one while we did it through the notes, which I posted on Google Classroom as well, or that we did in tutoring. Okay, so for every question, the way that you're going to start is that you're going to have to label not the quantity, you're going to have to label the market in which you are, the question is answering. In this case, then, this is the market for fish. And so we're going to label our y-axis with the large P for price, our x-axis with a large Q for quantity. We're going to have the supply curve and the demand curve, supply upward sloping, demand downward sloping. At their point of intersection, we are going to label this E for the equilibrium point, and we are going to dash out a line to the y-axis, and this is going to be our price equilibrium. You can illustrate it by doing a large P with a little e. And then you're going to dash to the x-axis. This is your quantity equilibrium. So this is how you should start every single one of your questions. The only thing that would be different is what market you are referring to. In this scenario, though, it says what happens to the equilibrium price and quantity in the market for fish when there are reports that show a level of radioactivity in Pacific cod due to the nuclear crisis in Japan. So once you've read the scenario, you have to determine, well, what is changing? Well, there's news reports that are saying that that fish is now radioactive. So that's not good for anybody's health. Nobody is going to demand fish at this time if they know that this fish is radioactive, right? So this is their preference has changed. Remember, we said that there's a lot of things that affect your preference or your taste. News reports, something that's popular, celebrity status, trend, things like that. And so if something is now all of a sudden brought to your attention by, let's say, for example, a news report, then it's going to affect the amount that you demand. It does not affect supply because none of the factors that affect supply is being changed. And if you want to go through a process of elimination, that's fine, you can. The number of sellers did not change, subsidies, taxes, expectations, all these things did not change. The news report only changes people's preference, and that affects demand. So does demand go up or down? Does it shift left or to the right? Well, if news reports are saying that Pacific cod is now radioactive, guess what? I'm not going to buy as much fish. So I'm going to draw a new curve. This is where the new color comes in place to draw the change. I'm going to draw a shift to the left of demand, label that D1 to show that demand moved from this point to here, right? It shifted from here to the left. And now then, demand and supply intersect at a new point. This new point we're going to label E1. This is our new equilibrium point. So here was our original, this is our new. And now then we have a new price that prevails in the market and a new quantity. Hence what happens to price and quantity on the question. So you're going to dash with your new color, dash out a line to the y-axis, label this PE1, right? And then to the x-axis, label this QE1. Here you can visualize what is happening to price. Well, price went from here to here, so price for fish is going to go down because of this news report saying that Pacific cod is radioactive. And also the quantity is going to go from here to the left. So it is going to decrease as well. Quantity, remember, this is 0 to infinity, right? So quantity will have decreased as well. On your assignment, there is a P and a Q like this. You should tell me that price has gone down and that quantity has also gone down. And then it asks you for the factor that affects supply. In this case, then it is preference. So all you have to do then is write preference and show that the demand curve is changed. I asked you guys to also label these, arrows to show progression, but showing the progression by labeling PE and PE1 or QE and QE1 will suffice as well. Remember that in any and all of these assignments that that only one curve is shifting. It's either supply or demand. It's not both. We'll talk about simultaneous shifts a little bit later. Okay, one more example and then I'll let you guys start on your assignments. But the second example is what happens to the equilibrium price and quantity in the market for candy bars when the price of sugar, which is an ingredient in candy bars, goes up. So again, I'm going to start by labeling the X and the Y axis, price and quantity, your supply and your demand curve. You need to get in the habit of doing this for every single one before you make any changes. This is the market for candy bars. It is really important to label the market as well. This original point of intersection is equilibrium. Dotted to the x-axis, this is quantity equilibrium. Dotted to the y-axis, and this is price equilibrium. So again, this is where you're starting each and every time. With the second color, then you're going to show a shift. And is it supply or demand that's changing? We'll read the scenario and then you can determine that. So if in the market for candy bars, when the price of sugar, which is an ingredient, goes up, what is going to happen? So sugar is an ingredient that tells me that that's a factor of production. Okay, that an input is something that you use to produce something else. That's going to affect the supply curve. So if the price of sugar has gone up, well, then that means that as a producer of candy bars, I'm not going to be able to buy as much sugar. I'm not going to be able to produce as much candy bars. So the supply of candy bars is going to shift to the left. I'm going to label this S1 to show a progression from here to here. The new point of intersection now is here, equilibrium 1, okay? I'm going to dot down to the x-axis. This is my quantity equilibrium 1, and I'm going to draw an arrow that it moved from here to here. So I know that quantity has gone down. And that price, PE1, that price has actually gone up in this scenario because of that, because of the price of sugar going up as well. Okay, because it's an ingredient. All right. So in any case, then in this case, the reason for this change is the cost of inputs. And you can just write that cost of inputs here. Remember that using these cheat sheets will help you significantly ask yourself, read the scenario and ask yourself, what is changing? If it's something from Piper, then it's demand. And if it's something from #StepThroughGiantCactus, then it's supply. And then you can shift supply accordingly to then see how price and how quantity is affected based on that scenario. So again, remember that there will only be one shift of either curve, the supply curve or the demand curve, and as a result, then price will either go up or down, or quantity will either go up or down. And then all you have to do is label the determinant that's changed, that changed either supply or the demand curve in this sense. So hopefully those notes have helped you. Like I said, you're going to have to draw out your answers like this for every even numbered question on the market and equilibrium assignment. So that way you can take a picture of it and then upload that as your assignment onto Google Classroom to turn it in. It's really hard for you to label absolutely everything, every single little thing that I asked you guys to label before or on the document, like by editing the document. So the easiest thing is just to draw it on a paper separate from, and then you can, or print out the actual assignment, draw it on the paper, and then upload the pictures. It's up to you, however you want to do it. But just remember that for every single question, that you label first a market and equilibrium. So label the x-axis, the y-axis. That's two things that you have to label. The supply and the demand curve originally, that's 4 things. The equilibrium point, that's 5. You have to also label the quantity equilibrium, that's 6. The price equilibrium, 7. You need to label the market for whatever this may be, in this case candy bars, right? So that's 8. You need to also label the new change in a different color. Let's say, for example, again, the change, that's 9. The new equilibrium point, 10. In this case, E1, E2. The new quantity equilibrium, that is 11. The new price equilibrium, that's 12. And then you also need to write down what happens to price and quantity, and then the factor that affects demand. In this case, it's the cost of inputs. So that's 12, 13, 14, 15 things that you need to write down or edit, which is why I tell you to just do it on your own paper and then upload your answers. So I hope that all of these have helped. I appreciate your time and you guys watching, those of you that are watching these videos for your own good. I appreciate you and thank you so much. And good luck with this assignment. If you need extra help, just inbox me or send me a message on Google Hangouts, or I said inbox me, but I meant email me. And then also we have a Google Meets on Wednesday at 2:30, I believe, or 3:30. Check Google Classroom. And that's going to be our weekly meet so that we can go over any questions that you might have, and I can also go over the odd numbered questions on the assignment. Okay, have a great evening. I'll see you guys soon. I really miss you. And that's it. Goodbye.